We have got a bunch of libtard news hosts that have finally got black fatigue from living in DC and having to put up with all this violence that has literally driven them to go full MAGA, it seems like. We got ABC, we got Joe Scarborough from MSNBC. His co-host is actually the one giving him black fatigue, but he actually pushes back for once and doesn't kiss her fat, obese feet, but or bald feet too. So let's check this out. This is the police chief, the DEI hired police chief. That was their like DEI equity officer or something for a year, and then got promoted to the police chief. Let's see how incompetent she is.
Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, starting with why you should never pick the DEI hires. Here is Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department Chief Pamela Smith, a diversity pick herself, who seems to struggle with even the most basic of reporter questions.
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So
Just shut up, get out of the way, shut up.
executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services in our home rule charter.
No, she doesn't know it, scurries off, passes it on to the next person. And look, let's just get this straight. The police chief doesn't even know what a chain of command is. She doesn't.
Is anyone surprised?
If she is the one in charge, would you believe? And this, folks, is what happens when you make the DEI pick the DEI pick. Because Pamela Smith, by the way, used to be the department's chief equity officer, and now, poof, promoted to chief.
And this is the level of performance you get when you do these things. You have rampant crime, you have YNs running all over the city, carjacking everyone, killing people. YNs that are like 15-year-old, just shooting people in cold blood and stealing their cars. It's crazy. Like it's out of control. And you got libtards arguing to keep the crime there. They're arguing that, oh, this is federal, this is authoritarian. They're arguing to keep crime in the city. They're arguing against law and order. They're arguing against safety. And this is that this has gotten so bad that it's turned libtards against libtards, because they don't realize that this is Trump just getting them to out themselves. If you go out here and you're protesting, no, we don't want you to stop the crime in our city, you're just showing America that you're straight up leftard idiot. So now we're going to take a look at they've already made arrests, so let's just go over the people that they've arrested. I think this was the first night, 23 arrests.
Well, despite the lefty meltdowns over Trump sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C., his plan has worked already.
Last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests, including multiple other contacts. Last night, these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to a lewd in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant.
Wow. The first night, they already caught a murderer, stalker, drug dealer, multiple firearm offenses, and wow, dude. This is really going to destroy the left. So now let's check in with the ABC host that says the quiet part out loud, and then we'll get into Joe Scarborough getting black fatigue, even though in reality they both have black fatigue.
Firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau. Just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand But again, I'm going to use a personal experience. I was jumped just 2 blocks here from the ABC bureau. It was not a minor, though. No, hey, look, it's happened to a lot of people in our building, sadly. He was homeless and half-dressed, clearly wasn't in his clear mind. It was scary as hell, I'm not going to lie, but I fought back. I didn't see any weapons in his hands. I felt like it was my only choice. The president did mention that this effort is also going to help clean up homelessness. As we know, many members of the homeless community, sadly, take it upon themselves, like what happened to me, to carry out violence. Not all of them are like that, but sadly, there are those that do, especially when you bring mental illness into the situation. Tell me what's going to happen with them. Will they be arrested? What will they be arrested for? And then where do they go? Because you know as well as I do, just outside those gates of the White House, just outside of the ABC bureau here, we have homeless communities in tents all along the streets and right off the side of the highway. What do you do with those folks?
That's a huge admission right there, man. See, they say you're only a leftard until the bad things start happening to you. And it's so true. Like, these people want to do the whole anti-Trump message, but they know they can't because they're actually being affected by all of the things that they're supposed to be supporting. All right, let's get to the next clip. We don't need to, you know what I mean? It's self-explanatory. They're suffering from this is why they say women shouldn't vote. They suffer from the own policies that they vote for, excuse me. They're victims. They're victims of the own policies that they vote for. Here's a clip where he exposes all these libtards crying.
So many people have been calling me over the past couple of days going, you know, like Washington should have gotten involved years ago. This place is dangerous. It's a mess. It's a wreck and whatever. And then they'll go on Twitter, go, this is the worst outrage of all time. The shocking.
Now we're going to see little Joe Scarborough over here confront this black queen, this big, bald black queen right here. And let's see, she's definitely going to cry racism, and that just exposes them further.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe, I'm a black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So what is it about talking about places like Southeast
Look at his face.
DC, right? Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe.
So let me get this straight. If you ask black people if they want to defund the police, they'll say no. They want more police in the areas that they live in. But when you have these luxury socialist libtards, they have the luxury to say, no, I don't want more police because they live in rich neighborhoods, and she'll lie and say, no, I live in the hood. Who here really thinks she lives in the hood? No, she don't. Look at that big ass mouth, dude. Bro, she never stops eating, dude. So she's got to be in a good neighborhood where she has a big access to Uber Eats like all day long, bro, for her Uber Eats subscriptions. She ain't getting on Ozempic, bro. She loves that full figure. And that's like a double wide.
I think we have to rethink what safety means in America.
Well, you know, there have been black city council members in New York City when people were talking about defunding the police, saying the people we represent are the people who need police officers the most. Need police officers the most. As safety officers in schools need police officers the most, so our children can walk from their homes to school without being stopped, 5-10 times by drug dealers or people that are going to assault them. I don't think this is an issue of black versus white when you come.
She has to make
you're
it that.
Talking about safety. There are a lot of black Americans who don't feel safe in their homes, in their neighborhoods. And when they hear people talking about defunding the police, it freaks them out. I'm not saying
I agree.
that's what you're
Defund the
saying.
police is not
I'm
good.
just
I never supported defund. I think you're making a good point, Joe. I want to be able to call the police in my neighborhood.
Oh, so you want to call them?
I don't want them to think that I'm a suspect. But what we are talking about is that the president of the United States.
Wait. But why would they think you're a suspect? Could it be because there's a high crime rate of black people there? Could that be the problem? What are you even saying? You're an idiot, dude. This is the level of IQ you're dealing with for these hosts that they get.
Is saying that there is a crime emergency in Washington, D.C.
There is.
An emergency could be anything that he says it is. So from his definition, maybe there is. The data would say
Maybe
otherwise.
there is.
But the issue...
The data that they just got exposed for fudging the numbers. They just got exposed for this. You can look it up. The guy just resigned, and then another guy's been put on administrative leave, paid leave, but he's probably just going to get totally fired. They're fudging the numbers to make it look like crime is down.
People keep citing is about the young people, the carjackings, right? The kids running into a CVS and like taking things out
the
of
YNs.
CVS. That is juvenile crime. And so how are the police officers or the National Guard going to address the issue of juvenile crime?
Arrest them.
Until we start talking about the policy, let's talk about the crime bill that DC passed last year that could be strengthened, right? Let's talk about that. But like, Donald Trump is using rhetoric and playing on the real fears that some people have because of what they've seen on the news, or maybe what they themselves have experienced. And
it's not what they've seen on the news. It's not what they've seen on the news. So I'm going to read this. Read this to you. This comes from somebody you know. It comes from somebody who's been a Democrat their entire life. It comes from somebody who lives in D.C. and has seen violence all around. Again, even as crime drops. Now, sometimes those statistics, they're leading indicators of what's going to happen. I know in New York City, we kept hearing about crime dropping in 21, 22, 23. You started to feel it in 23. So who knows? Maybe these people will start to feel it in 23. But this lifelong Democrat who's very active in Democratic politics said, I know he's doing it for politics, but crime seems rampant. I've had too many friends of mine who've had their cars carjacked, shot at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes. Quite the change from a decade
Look
ago.
at her. Idiot.
Much calmer. I guarantee you that's a person that has never voted for a Republican in their life.
Yeah,
and will
I never said it
vote
was
for a Republican
Republicans,
in their
Joe.
life.
But the person is making the point about juveniles. I go back to juveniles.
No, about carjackings, you idiot. Oh my God, it's like it makes your brain hurt, dude. No matter what you tell these people, they just it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Saying that people are imagining this, and first of all,
exactly.
We will agree on something. You said you've never been for defunding the police. Exactly, I understand that. I will say right here, the real problem with this is that Donald Trump uses anything to declare an emergency and be able to move unilaterally. We can name 20 things he's done, and it is a dangerous precedent for him to set. Dangerous not only because...
Then why does he always win in the Supreme Court?
But because future presidents will follow this example if the Supreme Court doesn't stop it in its tracks. But all I'm saying is this isn't imagined. Like people that you know, that I know, that we love, they and their friends don't feel safe in Washington, D.C. And it's not because they see it on TV.
I think, Joe, that the opening line of that text is, it feels like X, Y, and Z.
Here we go.
And the reality of the situation are two different
things. It doesn't matter what you tell them.
Perceives a situation does connect to their personal reality.
What a fucking
moron. And so I understand that there are people that feel like the city is out of control and it's under siege.
But it's totally fine.
I also know that to sit. I cannot knowingly sit here and say, as someone who lives in Washington, D.C., I live in the city. I don't live in the suburbs.
Bullshit.
I have lived all over the city, and I can tell you my experience is similar to David Drucker's. If I felt unsafe, if I thought it was as dangerous as everyone is saying it was, my husband and my stepson, we would not be living there. But is there crime in the city? Yeah. Is there crime all over the country? Yes. Is the answer to the
So, dude, everything she says, she talks out of the side of her mouth. Is there crime? Yeah. So you won't acknowledge that it's out of control. It is out of control.
Of this crime is the answer to what is happening as it relates to juvenile instances in the city. The National Guard and the FBI.
23 arrests
I would
already.
Say, as
one
someone
night.
that did juvenile justice reform work since I was 19 years old, the answer is no.
What an absolute idiot. Oh my God, dude. These people, it literally has to happen to them. She literally has to be carjacked, robbed, beaten on the street, be sexually assaulted by a homeless vagrant. It is insane to me that these people, the only way that they'll concede is if it finally happens to them. This is long enough, dude. Dude, the fatigue is real, bro. Let me know what you think.